We'd like to welcome you to the ISB webinar, Student Learning, Do Boards Really Make a Difference? And we're going to answer that question and much, much more during our interactive conversation today. This webinar is designed to provide candidates who are running for the board key insights on how school board teams do make a difference in student learning. And then we'll talk about specifically what that work looks like at the board table and how do board teams keep that work front and center in their work throughout the year. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the school board elections page on our IASB website. Like school boards, IASB is subject to the open meetings law. So this webinar is a public record, which means our discussion here is not private and may be accessible to the public. But we are looking forward to a vibrant and meaningful conversation. And we can see that we have brand new folks here joining us today, as well as some of our members. So thank you so much for carving out time for being with us today, or those of who are watching this on the recording. I'm Lou Gavist, and I'm on the board development team here today. And I'm so excited to have some of our fabulous team members joining us today. So Tammy, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, friends. I'm Tammy Draba, also on the board development team, and I like to say a recovering board member. So more about that later. Catherine, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, all. I'm Catherine Solon, also of the board development team, and I'm really happy to be with all of you today.
And Christy, unfortunately, you're having a little bit of technical difficulties. We can't see you, but would you open up your microphone? You're running the PowerPoint, excuse me, the webinar for us today with your computer. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. I am the board development specialist. And yes, I am very much in the background and my camera gave out, so I am literally in the dark here. But yeah, happy to be here and excited to participate in this webinar.
And thanks, Chris. You'll be providing supports by dropping in some links and some artifacts for our members today. Heather Hewlin, I see you're another team member. Would you wave? Oh, you just turned out you want to wave to everybody joining us. Thank you. Heather's one of our newer colleagues. I don't think there's anybody else from ISB on, but DT McGee. Would you like to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate you.
Thanks, DT. And if staff members, if I've missed anybody else, let me know. We can give them a moment to wave and say hello. All right, let's move on now. We're excited that and really deeply appreciate that two of our current practitioners have carved out time from their very busy days to share some insights for you and for us as current board members. So Jared McDonald, would you please take a minute and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Lou. I'm Jared McDonald. I'm the board president at the Winterset Community School District. I'm finishing my second term. So that's 8 years total I've been on the board. I've been board president for 3 of those last 8 years, maybe 4. I can't remember. I lose track of time. 2 kids in the district, live and work here in town. And I also am happy to serve on the Iowa Association of School Boards as District Director 8. So kind of South Central Iowa.
And thank you, Jared. For those of you that don't know, IASB is governed by school board members and AEA board members across the state and a couple others. And so, Jared, thank you for your service in representing your local area on our board. Sherry Funk, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry Funk, and I am completing my 12th year on the Marion Independent School District School Board, where I have been board president for the past 6 years. Like many of you, I will be on the ballot in November as I'm seeking re-election for another 4-year term. On a personal note, I'm retired from an amazing career in IT management, and I spend my free time now as a substitute teacher in the Marion district, which I absolutely love. I had a substitute job this morning already. And then kind of a little fun fact, I'm living in Iowa, planning my daughter's June wedding, which is going to take place in Illinois while she attends graduate school in Texas. So I have a lot going on, and it's extremely important to me that the time I spend on the board makes a difference.
Well, thank you to you both so much. We set this up intentionally so that as ISB staff share some tips and things to think about, we bring in our school board members who can actually share what this means and looks like for them in their service and at their board table. So we're looking forward to, again, a very interactive conversation. And with that, Catherine, I think you're going to talk about what engagement is going to look like today.
I am. Thanks, Lou. We really enjoy making these kinds of, excuse me, frog in my throat. We really enjoy making these kinds of learning experiences conversational and meaningful for all of you. So every now and then, we'll pause and give you time to unmute yourselves and ask some questions. You can also drop questions into chat at any time, and we'll work to answer those questions during our discussion. And then we'll also leave time at the end for any remaining questions that may come up for you.
Okay. Thanks, Catherine. So with that, Tammy, I think we have a quick poll.
We do. So to kick us off today and help us get started, and by the way, we're going to have several polls for interaction during our work today. None of them are a test, by the way, so it's okay if as you go along you think, I'm not sure what the answer is. It's all right. We're not recording who's selecting what answer. But to help us think a little bit about who is joining us today, what we would like you to do is, Christy's going to kick off a poll for us, but tell us what's your role in how you're participating today. So are you a candidate? Are you a former board member, a current board member, a superintendent? Maybe you're the business manager, board secretary, SBO, or there is other. So we're going to watch some of the numbers come in. Christy, how's it looking for those that are, you see the big numbers?
Oh, yes, we've got almost 90% replying so far, so we're looking good.
That is fabulous. So, well, if you'll pop that out to our participants, and just to give, in case you're watching this later when it's recorded and you don't see this, we have a lot of current board members on with us, about 41% it looks like, and we have 30 candidates, which is amazing. And then smothered in there are former board members, superintendents, business managers, board secretaries, and other. And we appreciate you all joining us today. So it's helpful to know who we have. Lou, I think you're going to take us through goals.
Thank you so much, Tammy. And we love the fact that our current members are participating, which just continues to show dedication to learning and how important that is. Thanks, Tammy. So what do we want to accomplish today? So big picture for our goals today, we're going to be exploring what does board service look like when boards are focusing on each and every student to ensure all students are learning at high levels. What does that look like? And how do board teams positively impact student learning? We know from research that they do, so we'll be talking about that. And then with all the things that pull the time and attention away from a board team throughout the year, how do boards keep a focus on students and student success? So we'll be exploring those ideas. And then at ISB, as we always do, we like to apply learning. So we have a small scenario to think through for considerations and insights for future situations and learning. So those are our big goals for the day. Tammy, I think you're going to kick us off with the first area.
I am. So let's get started with that first big goal. And you may have noticed some words in italics in the last slide, but we're going to talk about that big picture of board service and how do you or how will you ensure that every student, each student is getting a high and equitable education. And what does that look like? Lou and I and Catherine, when we're out in the field, we like to say that school boards are charged with providing oversight of two of the most important things in your community. And the first is your students, and the second one, or children, and the second one is taxes, which is everybody's favorite topic, but right, money and your children, those are so important. So today, what we're going to really focus on though, is that moral responsibility that school boards have to make sure that each child, that every child receives a quality education. And what does that look like? If you are a parent yourself, or maybe an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, it's easy to come to the board table and be thinking about your own children or the children you know. But the challenge becomes you are now thinking about all of the children, every child within your district. In one of our earlier webinars that you may have caught this past summer, we talked about where authority is granted within the board. And the law is very clear on this, that when we like to remind boards when we are having these conversations that authority is with the entire board. It's not with an individual member, and it's when you're all together as a collective body. We like to say, we use the term sometimes gavelled in. So when you've come together to have a board meeting together, you're there as a majority and you've published your meeting, by the way, that as a collective body, you are then going to work at what we will call a governance level. So it's at that high level coming together as a team. And when we say team, we are automatically including your superintendent. So it's the board superintendent team that are coming together to really talk about how will you best serve each of your students in your district. And when we say each student, you may ask yourself, well, what does that really mean? Whether it's each or whether it's every, each child, every child means all of them. It means the ones that you know, it means the ones you don't know, it means the ones that might sometimes be a little naughty. That might have been me in school. It also means the students that you often think of that are front and center, maybe from an activity or an event. And it's the students maybe that you don't hear from as much, but it's every single child. And that can be, this can be challenging in the realm of being a board member. A quote that we like to share that a board member said once is, of course, parents want the best for their own children. That's your job. As a school board member, it's now your job to want the best for each and every student or each and every child. Lou, I think you're going to keep leading us through this topic with some discussion questions.
Thank you, Tammy. And I appreciate you sharing that quote because we do refer to this often in our learning opportunities for board members. And we want to have you keep this in mind as we continue and have our discussion with Jared and Sherry. And so we have 2 discussion questions that we're going to ask our contributors to share their thoughts around, and then we're going to open it up for questions. But when it comes to Jared and Sherry, as a potential new board member, what is important for them to keep in mind, and what can help a board member grow in their viewpoints and understanding, especially when it comes to student learning? Jared, I think we're going to tee it up for you to start off with.
Thanks, Lou. As a potential new board member, and even as a returning board member, anybody that's running or serving, it's that in Winterset, we're about 1,600 students. Each and every one of those students is my student responsibility. I don't get to just focus on, as Tammy said in the presentation, I don't get to just focus on the ones that I talk to the most or the ones I see. It is each and every student. My kids are 2 of those, but I don't make decisions or try to make decisions based on how it impacts them. I look at how it impacts all students moving forward, and that each student is getting that education. And then something I always say, I believe in this wholeheartedly. I get in trouble for it at meetings sometimes because I'm looking things up, but how you can grow your viewpoints and understanding is just researching and learning, just continually adding to your understanding of how the education system works, what's going on in your buildings, what the students are doing, whether that's having reports from the students, from teachers, but just gathering as much information. And when you don't know something, just ask, always asking for clarification or more information.
Thank you so much, Jared. Sherry, what would you like to add to that, or in your own thinking, what would you like to bring to the table?
All right. Well, first of all, I love Tammy's emphasis on each child. At Marion, the first goal on our strategic plan actually states that each child will achieve at high levels across all academic areas. So then the question poses, how can I support each child and every child in my district as a new board member? So just like Jared said, I'll say it a little bit differently, but it's time to become a sponge. Absorb all the information you can get from your superintendent, from your experienced board members, and wonderful IASB resources like these webinars. It is important to spend time understanding your district and its diverse needs. Even if you stated some of your focus areas during the election, and I really hope you're not making any promises along the campaign trail, but your focus areas might need to change once you start to gain an understanding of your entire district and the diversity and needs of your entire student population. And then as you start to grow this knowledge and gain a respect for the work that the prior board members have completed, it's really important not to lose sight of the fact that you are 1/5 or 1/7 of the board. Working together becomes absolutely critical in supporting your entire student population. And one thing that's kind of important there is, not every vote is going to go the way that you want it to. But you need to always walk away from your boardroom supporting the decisions that have been made by the group as a whole. In regards to growing, our Marion board recently completed a book study relating to students in poverty. And what really brought the content to life was inviting our district social worker to one of our board work sessions, where she told us about homeless students in our district and some of the challenges that they face. Names were not given, but as a board, we just want to ensure that every child in our classrooms has a name when it comes to making decisions about the policies, about spending, and other resources to ensure that equitable education for everyone.
Those were beautiful thoughts and examples. And it just reminded me, one of the things that we hear experienced board members say the first year, just like you said, Jared and Sherry, just soak it up and learn as much as you can. Doesn't mean you can't speak up, doesn't mean you can't ask questions, but that's part of it, right? You don't know as much as you will in the coming months once you're on the board. I think we have one more question that we're going to ask each of you to respond to. When it comes to, and by the way, I want to credit one of our school board district teams that I just worked with recently, and Tammy and Catherine have both heard this, that we stopped saying all children. And because our members have spoken up and said, let's really focus on each and every child, because it gives us more clarity, I think, about who we're serving when we make it individualized. How does it look? What does it look like in Winterset, and what does it look like in Marion when the board is focused on keeping the focus on each and every child? What does that look like, Jared? Can you share some things that you do?
You bet. So in our agenda, we always have time carved out for, number one, building level reports. So each building administrator gives us a report on over our 4 strategic areas, priorities, and making sure that we're meeting those. And then we have a deep dive into another area, and that is spelled out in our agenda calendar that we get that tells us what we're going to kind of cover throughout the year as a board. But it's always more of a deeper dive into, reading or writing or math or one of those items, but just a good explanation of what's going on there. And then how, as a district, we're using our resources and our time and our staff to meet the needs of all children, each child, all children, even if they're meeting those goals or behind those goals. So it's, we go, yep, 80% are proficient. What about the 20%? What is going on in our district to help those 20%? And also, what are we doing with those 80% then to keep them engaged and learning more as well? It's not just they've met the benchmark, now go away. It's they've met the benchmark. What else do they need to continue their enrichment and their growth as well? And then helping those other 20% get to that benchmark as well.
So your board superintendent team have put in some very intentional steps to keep student learning. And when you talked about your priorities, you're talking about like your district priorities.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Front and center, and then have updates throughout the year on those.
Correct.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thanks for sharing. Jared, thanks for sharing, Jared. Sherry, how about you?
So at Marion, we know that our most valuable resource that's going to aid in the learning of our students is our teachers and our support staff. So we invest in those resources, investing in our teachers and our staff's needs. This can look like things as simple as including allocating days in our district calendar for their professional development, and then providing high quality learning opportunities. And not only for our teachers during professional development days, but we include our associates, our bus drivers, our food service workers, our custodians, because all of those individuals play a role in the learning success of each of our students. At Marion, we have a summer learning institute for our teachers, which includes some paid days where they come in and we have these extraordinary keynote speakers, and it gives them an opportunity to not only learn, but to have some fun and build those relationships with each other. As board members, some of the things that we do to invest in our teachers and our staff is reading our weekly board reports that our superintendent prepares, and then coming to the board table well prepared for our meetings. This really allows us to be knowledgeable and ready to make decisions that come up related to our curriculum and our financial commitments that are going to tie very directly into that student learning. The other thing I'll mention is we stay really focused on our mission and our goals because we tie each item on our board agenda to a goal within our strategic plan. So you can look at any board agenda and see what item is, why that item's important, and then exactly where it ties into our strategic plan.
So thank you both for sharing. So it's interesting and very thoughtful that both of your teams have decided to make student learning a priority, so much so that it's embedded front and center in your agendas. And what a fabulous communication method for the public and staff to know what the board is talking about and why, but why that's so important. So that's intentionally designed that way, and just a really good key takeaway for other teams to think about. Tammy or Catherine, do either one of you have anything in addition to add?
That was beautiful. I don't have anything.
No,
Okay.
that was terrific. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. I think we're going to do another poll. Tammy, would you like to kick us off?
Christy, I think this is you and I. We're gonna do a quick poll that talks about what will be your areas of first focus of learning as a new board member. And those of you that are not maybe running as or you're not as a board member, superintendents and our SBOs and board secretaries, maybe what would you like? What would you recommend that area be? But what's that first area of focus? Christy, how are we looking on participants?
We got about 35% answered, so it's still coming in.
All right. And it's right now, it's a little bit of everything. So teaching and student learning, school finance is an option, policy, legislative issues, mental health, my all-time favorite. I mean, all of it. That's sort of like I'll take what's behind door number 3, Alex. I want a little bit of everything. So I think we're probably ready to go ahead and close that poll, Christy. There's a beautiful balance, friends, between all of the pieces. And I would also say each and every one of these is so incredibly important. And each and every one of these will be unique in your own district. So for those that might watch this later, this is a pretty close tie between teaching and student learning, school finance, and I mean all of it. I would be remiss if I didn't say policy. We know that's important, and of course, legislative issues as well. So, Lou, I think I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you. We commonly hear, Tammy, that new board members say learning is like drinking from a fire hose, drinking water from a fire hose. So just recognize that that is a reality, but we're here to help you. Tammy and Catherine and Jared and Sherry, we're going to give our folks now a moment to unmute themselves and turn their cameras on. And if they'd like to ask a question of us, we're here to take those questions. We also have our chat open if you have anything that you want to put in chat, if you're a little bit more shy, or maybe your camera's not working, or maybe you're eating lunch and you want to just put your question there, you can. But we're just going to pause just for a quick moment and see if anybody has a question for us. Don't be shy. Oops, as I'm moving the slides. Nope. Okay, we're going to keep rolling. Again, if you have questions, put them in chat. We'll work those in. And let's move on to our next area. Goal number 2. We're going to talk now at a high level about how boards positively impact student learning. What does that work look like at the board table? And what do we know about the research? And Christy, you're going to put into chat a document. It's a synthesis of some research on school board governance and the ways that school boards do make a difference in student learning. For those of you that are interested, you can read that on your own. But we're going to move on and talk about that what we know from over the years from our own research at IASB called the Lighthouse Study, and from since then, that was about 25 years ago. Since then, there's been a lot more research in school board governance and the positive impacts that boards can and do make in student learning. And our work with school boards over the years, we know that absolutely boards can and do make a difference in student learning, but it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because there's some intentionality with the way that the boards play their governance roles well at the board table in conjunction and collaboration with their superintendent. Sherry and Jared shared a couple of ways that their boards are engaged in student learning. Well, we're going to go a little bit deeper in that and see what does it look like at the board table, and then we'll hear from Sherry and Jared again on what it looks like at their tables. So one of the first things that a board does well when they're playing their governance role is leveraging their role to set high expectations for student learning. One of the most important decisions that a board makes is to work with their superintendent and administrative team to set the vision of what they want to have happen for students, that they believe that all students can and will learn at high levels, and then to narrow an improvement focus and go after what they want to improve in student learning based on student learning needs. I'm going to give you a quick example. One district that I worked recently with had decided they looked at their literacy data and they recognized they wanted to focus pre-K 12 on a literacy initiative. So the board sets the direction for the staff to say, this is what we're going to go after based on collective understanding on the student learning needs, and then decided this is what we're going to focus on. And we believe that we have the staff to make it work. And this is what we're going to put our energies into. So the board works with staff to set an improvement goal and focus on a vision and goals to go right after student learning. That's well understood and published and agreed upon. The second role is that once the board sets a high expectation for student learning, they have to provide the supports to make that happen. Otherwise, they're setting the system up for failure. So what does support look like? Well, let's go back to our district that set a learning goal around literacy, pre-K 12. The board needs to then make sure that they're aligning their budget to help the staff meet the goals. So what would that look like? Well, if staff has early outs, their professional development time, what kind of resources are staff going to need to learn the new strategies to improve literacy? What kind of expertise might they need to bring in to help them? What materials, what might they need? So certainly the aligning your budget to your priorities is a key role of the board. Support also looks like from the board is continually asking, what do you need from us? It's one of the most important questions a board member or board team can be asking of their staff when they're at the board table giving a progress report or an update. So being a cheerleader, asking what supports you need, and helping staff recognize that you believe in them, you have the right staff to make it work, and providing the supports for staff to be successful in meeting the high expectations. So setting high expectations and goals, providing support, and then monitoring progress. That's an important key role that once the board and staff have identified what we're focusing on, what are we going to watch over time to make sure our efforts are paying off? And so identifying the indicators that we're going to watch over time, what are the indicators that we're going to watch to make sure kids are learning better, that they can read better, they can communicate better, they can write better, whatever that focus area is in literacy, how are we going to know over time that we're making a difference? And if we have challenges, what supports do you need? So it's very intentional that the board doesn't become mini curriculum directors. Board members aren't going to professional development meetings. They're not going to sit in along with the teachers and learn, but at the board table, they play these three critical roles really well to connect to students and ensure that students are being successful. With that, I'm going to now pass it back to Sherry and Jared because I just talked at a high level. Let's think about and hear what it looks like at Winterset when the board's playing out these roles in student learning. Sherry, why don't we start with you?
Okay. So Lou, my example that I want to talk about is very similar to the high level that you're giving. I'm just going to talk into a little bit more detail about
Great.
what exactly we've done at Marion. So we are a learning board at Marion, and we take our district mission to foster a community of learners and developing the knowledge and skills to be future ready very personally. So when the district created a 40X wildly important goal to reduce the percent of non-proficient students in ELA to 15%, when our Iowa assessments and FAST scores were measuring over 30%, the board dug our heels in and we started learning. We completed the same book study that our administrators completed on this 40X strategy. We set aside time at every board meeting to discuss student learning and the challenges and successes associated with this goal. We supported our superintendent in putting together a dashboard that we monitor regularly with data to show the progress. We celebrate the wins and we ask, just like you said, Lou, we ask what we can do to ensure that resources are available when there are challenges. We also provide a safe environment where teachers know we support them when things don't go always as planned. The other thing that I'd like to mention, and Lou was kind of getting this a little bit too, we have a saying at Marion that the board's role is to watch from the balcony, not dance on the floor. And what this means is that although we are a very active board, we respect and we understand the importance of not getting involved in the daily details of what it takes and what's taking place within our district. So we know our place. We hire our superintendent to lead our district, and then teachers are hired to teach our students. And so our role is to support them in the job that they're doing and that they specialize in.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for those crisp examples that really provide clarity of what it looks like in Marion. How about in Winterset, Jared?
Yeah, so Sherry kind of alluded to it, and Lou, you did too. It's the board kind of has those three jobs: hire and fire the soup, governance, and finance. So those all fall right into those vision goals, support and monitoring. We were having some setbacks on our ISAS with kids feeling connected to school. So our new superintendent came 6 years ago, and he came from a CKH, or Capturing Kids Heart district. And that was something he thought was very valuable in building connections with each student, and having an adult, a staff member in the district that student felt comfortable and wanted to talk to and be near. So we started off with that. He brought that to the board's attention. We expressed that that we're ready to start. We'd used some other different, systems before that, but this was the first time we heard of it. Him and a small group went to a workshop out of state. We had to loosen up funds for professional development for that. They loved it, brought it back to the district, taught some of their other peers. Another group went down to learning, and then actually we were seeing great strides in those smaller groups, and decided as a district we wanted everybody top to bottom to have the CKH training. And kind of Sherry mentioned earlier with Marion, that was bus drivers, all of our associates, certified staff, administrators, everybody. So before school started a couple years ago, they did a CKH training for everyone. And that just has been a huge impact on our learning, because when those kids feel safe at school, they have somebody to talk to, they have somebody to connect to, they're more engaged and more plugged in, instead of just feeling like they're there because they have to be there for those 7 hours a day, just going through the role. So that's kind of one of those ways that we at Winterset really took something that is directed at learning, but not just the learning piece, and helped improve our learning as a district. But again, it was focusing on those. The superintendent kind of had that idea. As the board, we agreed to it. We loosened up those funds to make sure they could get that taken care of. And then, as Sherry said as well, monitoring that. How are we seeing those commitment or those connection scores increasing? Are the kids feeling connected at every day when they're at school?
We didn't give you this question in advance. We did give you the questions in advance to think about, but both of you shared such compelling stories about you set goals, and then you were real focused on them and kept them front and center to positively impact student learning. Can you talk about how the learning that you both talked about learning throughout the year, and you did it a little bit differently, but that was an important part of your board superintendent team operating practice? How has that learning at the table around your area of improvement, literacy or capturing kids' hearts, how has that made you better as a board member? How has it improved how has it positively impact your governance? Jared, do you want to share that? How has
Yeah.
it made a difference?
So, especially I'll say with the CKH is, it again, it's a different mindset on how we're working with our students. Or I shouldn't say we are. Board members don't work with students. We're involved, we're engaged, we're there. But when our staff is reporting things to us, we hear about the CKH principles they're using to make those connections as well, and how having those connections helps facilitate when they're doing their learning. When they have social contracts in each classroom, so they sit down the first day of class and write out how they're going to interact with each other, how they're going to help each other, how they're going to cheer each other on, how they're going. I mean, just it's phenomenal to see students from elementary, elementary all the way through, and then even our building leadership teams, all of the different team groups that meet, team winners, that everything, they have social contracts. So everybody's held accountable to those same standards across. And then it's just, as the board member, when they discuss those things, we are well aware of what's going on. We're not just saying, oh, it's another acronym, or oh, it's another, because get ready, guys. Anybody that's running for the school board and you get on, it's acronym soup. Like there's letters and alphabets for everything. And just trying to keep track of all of them. But we were able to understand and grasp that and keep that up and going.
Thank you. How about you, Sherry? How has learning at the table made you a more powerful board member team?
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything that Jared said. And he's dead on about it's that terminology. And by doing that learning, being able to understand when your administrators are talking, or when your teachers are talking, or when you're receiving updates, or even just when you're reading dashboards, when you've taken the time to have that learning, and you can come, to the board table and understand what's being said. One additional thing I might say, in addition to what Jared said, is we had a very, very lofty goal. I mean, we're talking about cutting in half our non-proficient students within a year's time frame. And when we didn't quite meet that goal, and we're still working on that goal, but when we didn't quite meet that goal, because the board had gone through this learning and really engaged in understanding what it was going to take to get there, nobody looked up and said, well, why didn't we get there? Everybody understood, because we felt like, even though we weren't actively involved in the classrooms, we felt like we were on the journey our with our staff. And so we knew exactly why we weren't able to read. We knew it was a lofty goal at the beginning, but we knew why we didn't get there. But boy, were we proud of the success and the progress that we did make, because we really understood what it was taking to make the progress that we had made. So I think it just helped us to really be more empathetic in some ways, and then also helped us to, continue to support and encourage our staff that, we see the difference that you're making here, and we are completely with you and behind you. Let's keep going.
Oh, I couldn't have asked for better examples, and building that environment of trust where we're working together collaboratively and we're all in this together. That's a powerful message that you both shared. Thank you so much. Let's take if we have anybody have questions. I'm going to also ask Tammy or Catherine during this time if there's anything else you would like to add during this. No pressure, but as we're waiting in case folks have a question.
Corey has a fabulous note in chat that says, I've always thought about creating a cheat sheet for acronyms, and we can get you a link to our website that is searchable, and I think will really help. So I'm going to ask Christy, look at that. It's already done. I was just going to say, I'm going to ask somebody to drop that in. There you go.
And if that's their web page, Tammy, I think our members may be able to get to that, but probably not candidates yet. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. I believe that's correct. But for those of you who are looking to be elected, that will exist for you on the other side.
You'll be hearing about our Ready, Set, Govern workshops. Tammy and Catherine are going to talk about that. And that resource will be in your packets. So thank you so much, Tammy. And thanks, Corey, for mentioning that. All right.
And I'll just add something I do as board president. When we have new board members, I ask all of our administration team, SBO and everything, those first couple of meetings, instead of just saying the acronyms, say the full name. So everybody, the new board members especially, get used to hearing the full name, and not just that way they don't have to have the cheat sheet either. But we stop and we go, oh, SBA or all the fun ones we say out, MSA, all those different things.
Oh, that's another great strategy. Thanks for sharing, Jared. Just putting it in the front mind and center that we have new learners. Okay,
Carrie says, by the way, she was able to open the document and was not logged into the website. So there you go. Carrie,
That's great to
we
know.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Tammy, I think
Yeah.
there's a question. Do you want
There,
to read
there
it?
is another one. So Mary has asked a beautiful question, and that is, how do you I think engage in the work as a board discussing a book or goals while being mindful of a quorum? And so that's a beautiful question. And by the way, then it also says, do you do it all at the board table? And Mary, you answered your own question, because yes, you would do all of that at the board table. It's important to be mindful of the topics you discuss when you have a quorum. So even if you're sitting at the football game or the show choir event or the tennis match, that if you're all sitting together as board members, you may have a common theme that your students, your own children, bring you together. But we always ask you to be mindful of the perception of how that looks. And if you do find yourself in the same place, you're not talking about board work, it might seem odd to say, well, can the board talk about board learning at the table, or can the board talk about a book study? And not only do we say yes, but especially Catherine and Lou and I would say, we love it when you do that. And letting your public hear you invest that time in your conversation is a beautiful thing to do. So Mary, thank you for that question. And I hope that helps answer what you were thinking.
And Tammy, I'll just piggyback. Thanks for sharing that. Those are often called work sessions, and they are still open meetings. But oftentimes the board will engage in learning and there's no action taken during that night, but it allows the board to engage in good discussion and learning together, typically on one or two deeper topics. So beautiful question. And thanks for answering, Tammy. Catherine, I think you're going to talk about the next goal area.
I am. I am. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about how board teams work to keep their focus on students when you are working at the board table together. Board members often tell us that during their board meetings, they aren't spending much time on student learning. There are a lot of really big and little issues that are continually vying for the board's time. So some big ticket items, big issues would be like building projects or finance issues. They consume a big part of your time at the meeting table for prolonged periods, and that's necessary, but for a period of time. Once those big projects are finished, it's really important for the board to find ways that they routinely bring the focus back on students during board meetings. So that is always going to be your home base or your North Star, however you like to think about it, that you're always going to want to return to and keep working closely to. Similarly, but in the other direction, we have sometimes some smaller issues that are not really relevant to the board's work, but they do creep in to your precious time at the table together. So things like what time the homecoming parade should start, or what color to paint the new gym. When this happens, the board spends less time on that critical work to ensure student success in receiving a high quality education. So maintaining this balance and your constant orientation to that home base highest purpose, okay, again, focus on student success for all students. That can be a constant challenge for school board teams, and it can leave board members feeling less satisfied with their board work when that is out of balance. Board members say they run for the board to make a difference, and this is where the difference is made. So as you join your new board, look for the ways that they routinely reorient to that main purpose throughout the work that you're doing together, and be sure to bring that awareness and the focus with you to your new work as well. And I think Jared and Sherry are going to share some of their real world examples of how their boards do this.
Awesome. Jared, are we starting with you again, I think, for this one?
Sure. And I'll just kind of add, Sherry mentioned it earlier in hers, ways that we make sure to keep that focus on it's in our agendas, is, making sure you have a good, strong agenda, get your information only things first. We don't start with new business, old business. We start off with those informational items first, right up front at our board meeting. So that is what we cover first. That way we don't get bogged down by those other things, as Catherine calls them, the other things. There's always a list of other things to take up your time. And also with that, we also empower our superintendent and leadership team, our SBO, the building administration, to do a lot of things like that parade start time, those sorts of things. That's not on our table. That is what we feel they're there to do. They're the ones in the trenches doing the work daily. We just let them do that work. We as Sherry said too, we're in the balcony, not on the dance floor. We're steering the ship. We're not doing the rowing. We're letting them set those decisions and just agree with them, but also not holding it over their head if something goes wrong. You have to have grace with everybody as well. There's always grace involved. But just really having those set agendas, and then being mindful of what you're discussing and how you're discussing it. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared. Sherry, what's going on over there in Marion?
So Mary kind of gave me a great segue into kind of where I wanted to go on this. So at Marion, we typically hold 2 meetings per month. And one of these meetings is called a business meeting. And the other, just as Lou alluded, is what we call our work session. We do try not to approve a lot of things on our work session, but to be real, typically we have some kind of a consent agenda at those work sessions because there's just bills that need paid and, some things that just need immediately taken care of. But the work session typically is a much longer meeting than our actual business meeting, because when we get to our business meeting, we generally just need to approve things that we've been discussing and the things that we've learned about at our work sessions. So during our work sessions, we deep dive into various topics related to our student learning, curriculum, test scores, a lot of those types of things. These are also the meetings where, as Mary was asking about, we do our board learnings, such as our book studies that I mentioned that help us to build our Better Boardsmanship Awards. So it's critical that all members come to these meetings prepared by reviewing board reports that your superintendent's putting out. And then for us, if we're doing a book study, completing your pre-reading and making sure that you've gathered all the information you can coming into the meeting to help us keep things moving along. And then members are always encouraged to send their questions to the superintendent or maybe the business manager prior to the meeting. So that gives them an opportunity, it's kind of a courtesy to give them an opportunity to prepare any additional data that you might be seeking. That also kind of helps keep your meetings moving along if they know in advance what additional information you're going to be looking for. And we understand things come up that you maybe didn't think to ask for in advance, and you're still welcome to bring those up at the board table. But anytime you can, and you're like, hey, I'm going to be asking for this, give them the courtesy of bringing that up first, earlier before the meeting. The other thing we do at Marion to focus on student learning is we take our board meetings out into each of our 6 learning centers once a year, where we meet with the teacher leaders in each building. So we hold these meetings at 7:30 in the morning. So we are not inconveniencing our staff. They have to report and be there by 7:30 anyway. And the agenda for these meetings literally consists of these leaders sharing with us anything they want about the learning that's taking place in their buildings. And I would say that connecting with our teachers in these meetings is invaluable when it comes to gaining insight into the student learning within that building.
Thank you. Both of you have shared some really powerful examples. And I think one additional takeaway that we have talked about, but maybe haven't brought to the forefront, about the kind of commitment that it takes to be a board member. It's not just necessarily one meeting a month, that you may have more. Also, that it's important for you to spend time in getting prepared for and reading those packets. And so I think it's just helpful to think about, to be an effective board member, what it takes to commit beyond running and winning the election. So thank you so much for sharing. Tammy, I think we have now a scenario for our group to think about.
I'm so excited. I get to talk about Nancy Newcomer. Some of you may have met her. Maybe you haven't met her yet, but we're going to talk about what Nancy Newcomer does as she tries to follow through on her promises to voters after she won her election seat. And spoiler alert, I did hear Sherry say earlier, we're not supposed to make promises, or she said she hopes we weren't, but I think Christy's going to read the scenario for us.
Yeah. Board candidate Nancy Newcomer ran for the school board for the primary reason to reopen the beloved historical Truman Elementary, the neighborhood school that the previous board had closed. After all, the Truman students deserve their own school. As PTO president of Truman Elementary, Nancy was successful and won a seat on the school board. True to her word, shortly after the election, Nancy met with the superintendent and board president to pursue ways to get reopening the school on an upcoming board agenda.
Thank you, Christy. We appreciate that. You might be chuckling to yourself. You might be thinking this is a fabulous idea. You might be somewhere in between, but I would say that Catherine and Lou and I see situations like this where a very well intended board member is passionate about a very specific topic. It's probably had some very specific impact to Nancy, and Nancy wants to change what's happened. However, in Nancy's role now as a board member, she is responsible to think about, as we said right away in the beginning of the webinar, each student, every student, all students. And that picture then becomes a little bit difficult, and it can be challenging for a school board team. You could replace this particular topic with probably a variety of topics or situations in your own district. And I'm going to ask Jared and Sherry a little bit if they will share, but sometimes it could be something such as offering a particular foreign language, or maybe a foreign language all of a sudden gets dropped because you can't find a specific teacher for said foreign language, or maybe it's building a new school and maybe it's in a different location than what you were hoping for. Maybe it's expanding a sports program, but there are lots of challenges that can come from this. So Jared and Sherry, I'm going to ask you, and Jared, I think we're going to start with you. What advice would you give a new board member as they're stepping into this incredibly important role and as they approach topics like this?
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. You never know what you don't know. There's always way more that goes on before those decisions are made. Especially, I'll stick with Nancy Newcomer here and a building. It's always one of those processes that it didn't just happen. There was probably months and months and months, if not years, of discussion going on for that to be made. Financially, what does that impact on the district? What does that look like for staffing? There's just so much that goes into what some people might think or assume is a very simple decision is far from simple. I think that's one of my biggest takeaways for most people is it's not as simple as what a lot of people think at sitting at that table. And we also have to remember as a board, Sherry brought it up in her opening statement, there was you are just one of 5 or 7 in the state of Iowa, members on your board. I don't get to make a decision on my own. That board makes a decision, and then and Sherry said it as well, you have to agree to that decision. Even if you vote against it, the board has voted for it, so the district moves forward with that majority vote. You don't get to turn around then and go and complain and badmouth and belittle that decision that was made. That the board has made their decision, you move forward. And digging your heels in and really wanting to land blast or get mad about or have that axe to grind doesn't benefit your students. You really have to, turn that around and go, okay, how are we benefiting each of our students now? That school being shut down they may have to go somewhere else, but your teachers are getting still served, they're going to another bill. It's still going to turn out for the better because there's a plan in place. You just might not know that plan yet, but just understand there's a lot of things you don't know yet, and it does take time. Like I said, I'm in my 8th year, and there's still things that I'm like, oh, got it. Now I know that, or oh, I didn't know that, or I ask why a lot, and I also research a lot. I get in trouble, especially at the IASB board meetings. I'm constantly researching during meetings. I've been doing it here. You probably think I'm not paying attention, but people are bringing things up, and I'm researching. I'm looking up topics and things of that nature. So just always have that learning drive as well.
And just being curious. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Sherry, what about you?
Well, I literally attended board meetings in my district for an entire year before I actually ran for a seat. So I thought I had a really good perspective on what was going on in the district, and just, to jump ahead and say exactly what Jared said, I had no idea how much I did not know until I actually really started diving in as a board member. So I just want to encourage everyone to remain open to learning and seek to understand before you drive forward a personal agenda, because those really take the focus away from topics like student learning at the board table. Reach out to the superintendent and ask questions. I know our superintendent offers to meet with every board candidate multiple times prior to the election. And so that would be a really great time to, reach out to the superintendent and try and get some more of the factual information about why Truman Elementary was shut down. So I'm not going to repeat anymore because I was going to say the exact same stuff Jared said. So I'm on exactly the same train he is here.
I think that was, you both just stated those pieces beautifully. And Sherry, I loved your note about reach out to your superintendent. If you have not connected with your superintendent in your local district yet, Jared, how many days did you say we have till the election?
I believe it's 21.
21. So you still have 21 days. Reach out to your superintendent. One, they're an incredible source of information. They want to meet you if they have not had a chance to meet you. And it's a great opportunity to say, tell me about if you have something specific in your district that you are wanting to learn about. And I love the piece about be curious, and asking those great questions. So Lou, I think you're going to wrap us up.
I am. I'm going to wrap up and then we're going to share some important events that are coming up for new board members, candidates and new board members. But just to wrap up the three big ideas, the three big key takeaways, that the board service is designed to serve every single child to make sure all children are successful, that board teams do make a significant difference when they play certain governance roles really well and keep the focus on students and student success. So just something for you to be thinking about as key takeaways. And I'm going to ask Sherry and Jared, what are one more key takeaway that you'd like to share that may be something you either want to affirm that you've already said or maybe a new idea? Sherry, what would you like to say?
So I'm going to go with a new idea. So you are going to make a difference as a school board member. You just need to decide if that difference is going to have a positive impact on your student learning or if it could become a distraction on student learning. So one thing that I haven't shared that keeps distractions out of our boardroom and allows us to focus more on student learning is following what we call the chain of command in our district. So the board does serve in the capacity of being able to hear public concerns, but we also strive to find solutions at the lowest level possible in alignment with our board policy. So when someone brings a concern to you as a board member, please encourage them to work through the issues, starting with whomever is closest to the issue. In many cases, that means starting with a teacher or a lot of times a coach, and then, possibly moving it up to a principal or an athletic director. If the issue is still not resolved to their satisfaction, then they should reach out to your assistant superintendent or the superintendent. But hopefully issues can be resolved at one of these levels before it reaches the board, eliminating the need to spend board time on what's likely an issue related to just one or a handful of students, when that board time could be spent talking about all of the students, each and every student within your district, and the learning for those students.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sherry. Jared, what would you like to end your section with?
You're on a good start by being here on this webinar. We've said that multiple times, but use your resources. Iowa Association of School Boards, IASB, wealth of knowledge, convention, BoardCon, come to that. Lou's going to talk about that. I'm noticing Lou and Tammy and Catherine's thunder here, but I can't say it enough, is just learn how to be the best board member you can be. IASB has great learning around open meeting laws, how to structure your meetings, how to have those chains of command. There's just so much learning done there. And then networking. You get to meet other people that are in the same seat as you, and it's phenomenal people to reach out to. I have made so many connections and friendships through IASB. So when my district is having something, I can reach out, send an email, personal email to somebody I know, and go, hey, we're doing this. What's it like in your district? How do you handle this? What does it feel like? And if I don't get an answer that I know or like there, I reach out to staff at IASB. They become your best friends. And this is not a paid plug as I'm an IASB member, but I'm an IASB member because I value the input and the support that IASB gives to our board members. So just don't think you're doing it on alone and you got to invent the wheel. I've said for many, many years, it's so much easier to steal the wheel than reinvent the wheel. So steal it from somebody else.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sherry and Jared. And Catherine, would you share what's coming up for our new board members?
I would love to. That was unsolicited commercial from Jared. That was beautiful. Thank you. Nobody told him to say that. Some really important things if you want to get off on the right foot and feed your curiosity. IASB's BoardCon is set for November 19th through the 20th. So save these dates on your calendars. We have 2 full days of learning for board and superintendent teams. There is also a special workshop for newly elected board members on November 19th. It's called Ready, Set, Govern. We'll cover essential information to help newly elected board members get a great start on your board service. Then on November 20th, learning continues during BoardCon on Thursday with inspiring keynote speakers and more than 30 breakout sessions focused on education issues and trends, including a track for new board members. One new thing this year, as you may know, Iowa law now requires newly elected and appointed school board, AEA, and community college board members to complete open meetings and public records training. So IASB, with the review and approval of the Iowa Public Information Board, aka IPIB, one of those acronyms you'll hear a lot, is offering a 90-minute session tailored specifically for Iowa public school boards. This training is being offered during BoardCon's closing session on November 20th, where you'll be able to get certification that you've taken your training. There will be other opportunities available to you through IASB to get this training, but this is a terrific opportunity to just take care of a whole lot of learning all at once in one package. So for more information on all of this stuff, visit our website. Christy, I think, has dropped in a link to a document here that has some more information for you if you're interested. Tammy?
And Tammy.
Thanks, Catherine. I'll just follow that up by first saying, friends, you're all leaders in your community because you are either a serving board member or you are wanting to serve. And that is a beautiful thing. I encourage you to invest in yourself and the work that you are going to do this year. I used to say IASB only gets so many of my vacation days when I was a board member, and I would carefully pick. And going to convention or BoardCon was top of my list. So invest in yourself. If you are choosing some different sessions when you are at BoardCon in November and you choose not to do the Ready, Set, Govern workshop, then we're going to be on the road at 16 different locations around the state of Iowa from December 2nd to January 29th. Because what else would a person want to do than be driving all around the state of Iowa in December and January? But we're going to come to you. So it'll be the Lou, Catherine, Tammy show, and we will be delivering that very same content. So you can see what's on the screen, even if you want to take a quick picture with your phone to say, which one of these is the closest to me? We've worked really hard to put something that is hopefully within less than 90 minutes of you. It'll include a light meal. You're going to get to meet neighboring board members and learn together. So we all hope to see you between November and January. And by the way, you can come more than once. That's a beautiful thing as well. So you can attend at convention, at BoardCon if you'd like, and you can attend when we're in your neck of the woods. So Lou, I think you're going to take us home.
Yes,
So
thank you so much, Catherine and Tammy and Christy, for putting the links to our documents and URL and website in our chat. Please reach out if you have any additional questions. Our contact information is on the slide. The slide and our documents and materials that we use today will be posted on our website, so you can access all the information, including our phone number and email address. Give us a call if we can help you in any questions that you have. And I would like to personally thank Jared and Sherry for taking time out of your busy days. Not only are you board members, but you also have other busy lives, and yet you carved out time to spend time with candidates and new board members to share your insights. So thank you so much for that and your commitment to IASB and supporting the learning of our potentially new members. I'd also like to thank Tammy, Catherine, and Christy for your contributions as well. Remember, IASB is a resource for you. We are only a phone call away. We look forward to continue, for those of you who run and win your election, we look forward to staying connected and supporting you in the future. Thanks so much. This is being recorded and will be posted within 48 hours. And from that, we will say thanks so much to your commitment to learning, and take care, everyone.